लेकिन कहीं तो जा रही है वो।
Now I have very little experience of both sides, academic and teaching. I'm a filmmaker by training, inclination, and that's what I've been doing. I follow the same thing when I teach. I work on like a filmmaking project. So I'm a super specialized teacher. I don't know anything about media. I just worked in cinema and television, and that's what I know. And
So,
I can't claim any more knowledge in these areas.
हाँ, तो आपने क्लेम करेंगे तो और क्या हम क्लेम करेंगे। हम कल आपका सीवी देख देख के हैरान, मतलब समझ नहीं आ रहा था क्या क्या इसमें उठाएं और क्या क्या छोड़े इसमें, मतलब आपका इतना एक्सटेंसिव वर्क है।
यार ऐसा है, when you grow old and you make your CV, हर साल की एक भी एक्टिविटी लिखते हो, it's a lot of years. And I sort of did my first filmmaking job in second year of FTI. I spent at that time. So I guess it's been a while. It's been 40 years of working in the same thing. I remember I was interviewed by somebody for a job, and he looked at my CV and said, "ये तो 8 पेज लंबा है." Sort of, yeah, it was 35 years at that time.
Let's begin.
Yeah, whenever you guys are ready.
हाँ,
Please take the
अक्षय एक मिनट, सर को थोड़ा माइक की प्लेसमेंट का वो कैन बी हेल्प। हाँ जी,
वो और कोई हेडफोन्स होंगे तो फिर that might work. This headphones, I don't know if it's connected even to the system. Could you check with someone if it's connected to the system?
Just reconnected it, see if it helps.
Yeah, it's a little better.
It's a little better, so it needs to be a lot better. Okay. Does this help at all? No.
Yeah.
सर बीच बीच में एकदम क्लियर आ जाती है, फिर एकदम से वो यू नो वी कुड ओनली सी योर लिप मूवमेंट एंड नॉट द वॉइस।
Manish, ये शंकर गया क्या? शंकर, ये मेरे हेडफोन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, मुझे एक हेडसेट दे सकते हो थोड़ी देर के लिए? हाँ, हेडफोन माइक के साथ वाला। हम अभी इमीडिएटली क्लास चल रही है, भेज दो। Okay, let's try and getting another headphone.
हाँ जी, ये सर आपकी आवाज उतनी ही आ रही थी जितनी आपका ईयरफोन यूज करके आ रही थी।
हाँ, तो
आई थिंक इसमें प्रॉब्लम है, मेरे ख्याल आपके ईयरफोन में प्रॉब्लम है।
ठीक है, I'll get another one.
ठीक है जी, हाँ जी।
So you start the process. It will come in the next few minutes. We'll adjust it.
Yes, Satyam.
Yeah, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, you are very much audible.
Okay. So hello and good morning to everyone present. I hope all of you are doing very fine. My name is Satyam, the assistant lead of KES Seal Deal Society of Film and TV under the Department of Film Production and Communication, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you here today. Everyone joining us today, including me, is a budding filmmaker, storyteller, and an avid cinema enthusiast with a fierce knowledge and passion for cinema. Today's session, just like many others, we have invited a renowned and revered academician and industry expert to inculcate the age that every creative needs and to educate our young minds with their abundant knowledge. I hope that by the end of this session, we get to learn valuable lessons and use them in our own future endeavors. Before we jump into this intriguing and enlightening session, I request the Secretary of Club, Devanshi Soni, to extend a warm welcome to Amit sir and our wonderful audience. Devanshi, over to you.
Good morning to each one of you present today. I'm Devanshi Soni, Secretary of KES Real Deal Society of Film and Television under the Department of Film Production and Communication. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome everyone who are present here to attend this event. On behalf of the club, I offer my regards to our honorable speaker, Mr. Amit Tyagi. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and coming over for the event. I convey my regards to all the teachers and people joining us. So the schedule of this event will focus on topic that is new age female protagonists in contemporary Hindi cinema, where we'll continue to address the full aspects of the topic.
बस mic on हो गया कि देख कर लीजिए.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it is sounding quite better, sir.
It is sounding better. So then
Yeah.
let's go for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's proceed.
Yeah. Yes, Devanshi.
Should I start over again?
Yeah.
Okay.
No need to start again. You are done, I guess.
Yeah. I wish this forum enlightens us and provide us with some valuable insights of Hindi cinema. Thank you.
Thank you, Devanshi. Now I would request Assistant Professor.
Okay, he was going to ask me to do the introduction, so I'm just going to go for it.
Just a minute.
Yeah. Okay, I'll begin the introduction. A renowned academician and an expert of cinema could be a few choice words to describe Amit Tyagi sir, but definitely do not encompass the knowledge he possesses or the success he has garnered over the years. I'll be taking a little longer to discuss Sir's illustrious career because not to do so will be an injustice to Sir, but also to the audience to rob them of understanding the stature of our lecturer today. The former Dean of Films at FTII and the current Associate Director at MIT School of Film and Television in Pune started his career as a student at FTII, pursuing his diploma in cinema and post-diploma in film direction. In 1982 to 1983, he began his film career as assistant editor for the feature film Jaane Bhi To Yaaro under editor Renu Saluja and director Kundan Shah. In 83, he worked as the assistant director with Kumar Shahani, making a film for UK's Channel 4 television. In 84, he was the assistant editor for feature documentary Hamara Shehar. In 85, he worked as the researcher and director for Comet Foundation's television show Bharat Ek Khoj. From 86 to 88, he was the director of film division for the Government of India, where he made television series like Sitaron Ki Duniya with Jayant Narlekar on astronomy. From 88 to 89, he was a scriptwriter on a weekly science program for Doordarshan's Metro channel. In the same year, he was a scriptwriter for the pilot program for Doordarshan and scriptwriter for the episode of television series for Doordarshan's Channel 1, Hum Panchi Ek Dal Ke. In 1995, he was the director for a television series Telhousie with Javed Jafri for cable channel in Mumbai. In 1996, he directed episode 1 to 4 of television series Jai Hanuman for Doordarshan's Channel 1. In 2002, he was the producer-director for the Kenyan version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or Kaun Banega Crorepati in India. In 2003, he set up the company Themescape Media Limited in Nairobi, Kenya, to produce local programming. In 2006, he wrote a script and directed a documentary on Kenya's Mau Mau freedom fighters case against the British government for the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And in the same year, won a UNESCO award for new media works for short fiction piece Camels, Goats and Books. In 2008, he won French government's award for short fiction for the script of The Encounter. In 2011, he was writing and directing 4 documentaries on cancer in Kenya for the Kenya Cancer Association. From 2013 to 2016, he was a visiting faculty and head of direction at Indian Film and Television Institute, Meerut, teaching film and television direction. From 2014 to 2015, he was the visiting faculty at State Film Institute, Rohtak, MIT ISBJ BJ Pune, and MIT School of Design Pune in film direction and script writing. In 2015, he made a documentary for the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, named India Africa, a Partnership for Growth. He also taught at Mumbai University in 1994 and the Mohammed Amin School for Television, Nairobi, 2008. Sir has done as many things as one can only dream of doing in their lifetime. Today, we have the privilege of having him with us and hear him speak on the shared passion of everyone present over here, cinema. I hope you listen carefully and absorb every single word that he has for us today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Akshay sir. Now, without a moment's delay, I would now request our honorable speaker, Mr. Amit Tyagi sir, to please come forward and shower us with his beneficial insight on today's topic of discussion, which is New Age of Female Protagonists in Contemporary Hindi Cinema. Amit sir, to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great honor and privilege to be with any group of people that is interested in cinema. When you were reading this rather elaborate version of my CV, I was actually looking away and wondering if it was really me that was being talked about, because you sometimes forget what you've done. And I would advise you to not go by anything that has been read by my colleague here on the professor. And let's focus on today. Let's focus on right now. And see, what I'm going to do is not really lecture you, but explore ideas with you so that you can comprehend things a little better. Okay? So I don't think it's the right kind of thing to be giving you a formal lecture on as in a classroom. It will be more of an interactive session where I'll share a few ideas and be open to receiving some ideas from you. And hopefully we'll all be a little more enlightened by the end of it. The topic of today's discussion has been given to me by my dear friend Ravi Parihar, and all I asked her was to see if she could list out films which people would have seen or could potentially have seen. So she listed out films which were made between 2011 and 2015, which in today's media world, which you guys know, I deal with first year, second year students all the time, really running a film school, and typical memories are about films which are about 6 months old only. So I don't know how many of you have actually seen these films and gone through them, but there are certain common features to these films. What I'm going to do is to take them one by one and not as a group, because when you take three diverse films, yes, I know two are options, but the third one is of a totally different category and might not fit into generalizations that fast. And I'll try and trace, give you some glimpse of where in Indian cinema's history they come from, so that you get an idea of why Ravi ma'am chose them for you and not some other films. Okay. So let's just redo the list. It is Piku and Dirty Picture and Vicky Donor. Now, out of these three, Dirty Picture is the oldest technically. It was made in 2011, which is about 11 years ago, which for most of you is at a time when you weren't allowed to watch these films, right? So you would have probably seen it by the time you were already a bit grown up, and it was already an old film which kids were told not to watch because of the title. And then somewhere down the line you saw it. So we'll deal with Dirty Picture first, okay? Then we'll go on to Vicky Donor, and then we'll do Piku. And I'll try and add in a few more things about more contemporary films, because obviously the list of these depictions doesn't end with these films, but to me, there is a direct line from there to which one do you think of the contemporary films? Chandigarh Kare Ashiki for Ravi Parihar, right? So that's where we link it to. Okay, basically, when you talk of a film like Dirty Picture, now, despite the title, it doesn't actually have too many controversial elements, so to say. It's not a film very full of sexuality in any sense of the word. I mean, in a very, very broad sense of the word, yes, but it is still, even for its own time, a reasonably conservative film because it's designed for a mainstream audience, which at that time, despite satellite television having been around since the year 99 and 2000 start first came from here. But basically, it is still a very conservative film in dealing with sexuality. But what you do see in the film, in the storyline of the film, is the emergence of a woman into being her own person from being just a girl who was getting married. At the beginning of the film, you see the girl just getting married and sort of running away from her. And it's by the end of the film that she emerges into her own. Okay? Just 1 second. Okay. Now, when you talk of it, it's not really, obviously not the first female-centric film, nor the first story of a woman emerging into her own. There is a long tradition of such films, even within Indian cinema and mainstream Indian cinema and its so-called conservative attitude. If you look at a film like V. Shankaram and Prabhat's Amar Jyoti, which is made in 1934, it's about a woman who becomes a pirate, if you please, a sea pirate, okay, in the medieval ages, and leads her own ship to go on a raiding, pillaging cruise, and this is 1934. Okay, this is very much a 1934 black and white film. Durga Gode in the lead, dressed in men's clothes, fighting away with a sword in hand. Beautifully made. Have a look at the film at some point, and it will give you an idea that even at that time, people were thinking of these kind of things. The whole notion that men and women are equal and nobody is inferior or superior is very much ingrained in the way the story is of Amar Jyoti. It's up on YouTube in a few places. Have a look when you get a chance. I also traced that line to another very famous film of Prabhat, which in Hindi is called Duniya Na Mane, which is about a young girl who gets married to a much older man. And she rebels against the damn thing, even though it's the age of arranged marriages. And the whole story is of this woman emerging into her own life and eventually the man supporting her. So the subjects that we are dealing with here are not new, but there are aspects in Dirty Picture which are very new. I'll give you just the one big example. It's one of the first films in India that depicts a woman actually breaking out of a beneficial but still abusive relationship, okay, with her older man. And she breaks out of it. Despite realizing that it's benefiting her position and in a sense provides her with a comfort zone. But she breaks out of that because she realizes there's more to life than just being at the receiving end of an abusive relationship with a powerful person. Now, this is a very rare thing to get in any mainstream cinema or art, not just in India, but anywhere else in the world. Okay? So that's something to note in this film, the relationship between the characters played by Vidya Balan and Naseeruddin Shah is something you need to check on carefully. It's a very rare depiction. People in Indian cinema, the whole idea of a woman breaking out and sort of emerging on her own is still very rare. It's yeah.
ये जो है आउटलेट पे दिखाना पड़ेगा जो आइटम लाया है
अच्छा, ठीक है, दिखा दो।
गेट का बनेगा
Sorry, there's some office chaos. Okay, where was I now? I forgot to check. Basically, I was telling you that the whole idea of a woman breaking out of a situation which is tough for her is very rarely depicted in mainstream Indian cinema. I'll give you just one example. See a classic film from the early 1970s called Amar Prem with Rajesh Khanna and Sharmila Tagore, R.D. Burman's legendary songs. Now the woman is clearly forced into prostitution there. But from there, she doesn't go anywhere further. Neither does this guy support her into going anywhere further. It's never even suggested that this guy who's clearly rich and more powerful than her would help her out of this situation. But he doesn't do it. It just doesn't happen. She remains an aging prostitute without a place to live at the end of the film. Whereas Rajesh Khanna is by now, he's aged obviously, but he's still a rich man. But he never makes an effort to help her break out in any sense of the word wherever she's stuck. And that is the traditional way in which we depicted women. That, poor helpless creatures, we kind of don't help them. There are very few films which did try to break out of this mold. I mentioned two. I want to mention one more film of Bimal Roy's called Bandini, which at some point you should catch, which has Nutanji in the lead role. That is a woman who leaves her house to follow her love and then gets into a problem because the place where she's working, somebody makes a rape attempt on her and she kills the guy and she lands up in jail. But again, there is a problem with the film. Bimal Roy actually shot when the jailer falls in love with the girl and because she's a very decent person and they decide to get married. And when they're going to get married, she sees the old first love, the revolutionary for whom she had left her home and village. And what does she do? She goes back to the old love. She doesn't break out of the mold. Bimal Roy shot both endings for the film. One in which she sees the old love at that place and opts to go with the younger person because there's a future there. And the other, which is there in the film currently, which is that she goes back to her old love and deserts the new person. Now, even there, because Bimal Roy said very clearly that, if I show this woman leaving the old love, this film will not work. People will not accept it. The key word on mainstream cinema was that the people will not accept it. Now, by the time you make Dirty Picture, many years later, end of the day, Bandini is 1961, and this one is 2011. So it's a good 50 years have gone by. That is the change which has come about in Indian society also, that you are more willing to accept women who take charge of their lives, maybe unsuccessfully, but do take charge of their lives and chaos. That is the key point of Dirty Picture. It's not a great cinematic masterpiece if you were to look at the use of cinema language, if you were to look at the screenplay or this or that. As a film teacher, there are a few million things I could not talk about in the film. But eventually, as a story, the reason it works is it's one of the first descriptions of a woman who at every level in her life tries to break out of things and take charge of her life. That in Indian cinema, especially in mainstream Hindi cinema, is a new thing. That is why you need to remember Dirty Picture. You may not like it too much as a film today, but for just the subject, you need to make note of that film. Okay, what I'll do is I'll move on to the next film. If you have any questions, please note them and keep them. We'll deal with all of them later. Okay, the next film is a rarity. It's Vicky Donor, Srijit Sarkar's first feature film, also better known as Ayushman's first film. It also marks a return of a very old tradition in India. In India, in the 1930s and up till early 1940, the heroes and heroines used to sing their own song before playback singing came in. And Vicky Donor takes you back into that age because Ayushmann Khurrana sings his own song, right? So it actually it's a very old-fashioned film in some sense of the word. But that aside, what is unique about the film? Let's look at what is unique about the film. It's a film about a sperm donor, which is a very male phenomenon, right? And in a great irony that is there in the film, what happens? That the sperm donor is unable to have biological kids of his own. Now, in this day and age, you say, no, great shakes, fine, it's okay. Whichever way you have kids, it's fine, it's quite okay, not an issue. If you decide not to have kids, that's also fine, nobody really minds it. But coming at the time it did, and talking the language of mainstream cinema, the sheer acceptance of this new idea which the film brings, and the fact that the sperm donor is very much a part of life. He's not somebody who's, some kind of desperado who's out of our mainstream life, but the film makes him out to be as much of a part of our lives as the average clerk working in your office, writing your exam mark sheet, right? That is the way the film depicts that this is a profession like any other. And if this is what happens, well, that's the way it is. Now, the interesting thing about the film is that it's perhaps the first film in India and one of the few in the world that, it talks about reproductivity in human lives and almost delinks it with sexuality. Okay, that it is a certain biological process which with certain amount of biological knowledge which we as human beings have acquired through science. The film shows you that these kind of things are possible. It doesn't depict one particular family and a sad story that, these guys don't have kids, so life is damn sad and all their relatives are making barbed comments at them kind of thing. It's not that kind of film at all. It's a film which treats with things in a very matter-of-fact manner. The guy comes from an absolutely average, routine, middle-class kind of background in Delhi, falls in love with a girl, pretty routine, both in the films and real life in middle-class houses. And they would decide to get married. Fine, fair enough, no problem with that. And when there are problems of the wife being unable to conceive, then what happens? They accept it with the great ease which you never see in Indian cinema. But that is where the film marks a breakthrough. That is why Ravi had picked it, because it's a film which marks a very major landmark in the way human reproductivity is depicted in mainstream media. Okay, today you're used to Chandigarh Kare Ashiki, right? Now the guy knows that there's no biological possibility of this relationship progressing or generations proceeding henceforward. But he's not hasn't about that part of life. He's quite okay with it. But Vicky Donor in 2012 marked a major change in the way we depicted these things within the framework of a very, very mainstream commercial film, which is a love story. All the other things which make films acceptable to mainstream audiences. It even has a stock character when you look at the boy's mother or his sister, who are pretty much stock characters that you've seen in a few million films and TV serials, and the film accepts them quite easily. Now, what is it that, when I saw Vicky Donor for the first time, I prefer watching these films typically a few years after the popular discussion on them has quietened down, because I find it helps me judge them better. And my instinctive reaction to Vicky Donor was that it needs a sequel. It needs a Vicky Donor Part 2, which is IVF story, of surrogate pregnancy story. That is what the damn film needs, right? That could be the flip side of it. I mean, nobody has yet made a film on surrogate pregnancy, but I'm sure one of you will stand up one day and make a film on that, because that's the logical sequel to what Vicky Donor is all about. It is what is happening in our societies today. It's not something hidden or mysterious or, an illegal abortion kind of thing in Europe, in a Catholic country. It's not that kind of thing at all. It's very much an open phenomenon. We all know about it. It's discussed in the newspaper, discussed in Parliament and elsewhere. So it's something which is ongoing. It's something that you need to know. Commercial break. My job. Okay. This is Vicky Donor. Let me move on. I'm not discussing it more in detail because I don't want to sum up the story for you. I think you guys are really capable of doing that yourself. Let me move on to Vicky Donor, though one thing needs to be noted, that you won't find a film like that in mainstream Indian cinema. When you look at earlier films which depicted couples who didn't have children, it was usually a sad story that, I'm so bad, yeah, they don't have kids, they have to, poor guys have to live on their own kind of thing. You see Hrishikesh Mukherjee's anthology called Musafir, which is his first film. And the first part of it deals with a couple which don't have children and run away from their homes. And the whole ethos of the film is also sad. These poor guys have to live on their own. There are no kids in the house. Now, Vicky Donor doesn't have that kind of damn things in it. It just says, to hell with it, yeah, it's okay. It's quite cool to be, without kids. It's quite okay. Which in mainstream cinema, for an audience in India, we don't do specialist films. Our films are watched by 6-year-olds and by 90-year-olds sitting together in front of the TV set or in the cinema hall and watching the damn film. So in India, every film is a family film. We don't isolate them. It's not in the West. There are young people films and there are old people films, and the young people don't watch the old people films. They don't give a damn for half of those films. But in India, it doesn't work like that. There are no specialist films. Literally, all of them are watched by the whole family together. Now, in that kind of atmosphere, when you depict these kind of emotions, that is what makes it interesting and new and novel. That's what you got to note about these films. That these aren't films which are going to be made and then forgotten and nobody watches them. These are mainstream films. People still hum their songs. People will still tell you dialogues from these films. And yet, within that framework, they've managed to convey messages about the way a new society is structured. Not just the female, but the male as well. Because remember, the role of women doesn't change if the role of the male doesn't change, right? They both go together. You can't change one in isolation. Okay, now let's go on to the final film, which has none of these elements. That is Piku. Now, why pick on Piku? You know, it's a lovely story. I enjoyed watching it. I've seen it twice, and I was always remembering encounters between my father-in-law and my wife, and them attacking each other when I was watching the film. And my son and I were laughing at half the film very loudly. And he's saying, you know, that's my mom, that's my nana, that they talk like this. So the film is like that. It's a greatly enjoyable film. But what is interesting about the film? Then let me refer to you with just two examples. The first one, very early in the film, there's a scene in which there is a prospective groom come to see the girl, come to meet the girl at a party. And what does the father tell the groom? Does anybody remember that? He says, she's not a virgin. Okay. Now, when the hell was the last time you heard that word mentioned in a Hindi film? Can you imagine a mainstream film, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, anybody saying virginity? You don't hear of such goddamn words in a Karan Johar film, right? Or in any other mainstream film. And here is a film where there is a father talking about his own daughter, not talking about third parties. Okay, he's talking about his own daughter. And this is what he says. You know, whatever his motivation, that's a separate argument altogether. But I'm saying the fact that such a dialogue and such an encounter can take place in such a classical Indian situation of the girl's father talking to the prospective groom and then saying, you know, the girl is not a virgin. When the hell was the last time you heard such a dialogue in a Hindi film? Hindi films are the home of conservatism in this country, like mainstream media elsewhere in the world. They are meant to be conservative. Their whole idea of being mainstream is to conserve a society and as it works. Now there, this kind of thing comes up. That is the kind of thing that makes Piku interesting. Now, look at the follow-up to these kind of encounters. That these guys have their differences, but eventually they are a father and daughter. They form each other in certain ways. He is what he is because she is what she is, and she is what she is because he is what he is. They are father and daughter. They are, you know, sort of inextricably linked together. Now let me compare it to another Hindi film, which is older, which is called Anupama, which has Sharmila Tagore and Dharmendra in the lead. And Sharmila is this oppressed daughter of a father whose wife died in childbirth, and hence he doesn't love the child. And the whole film is about a mother-child relationship, which is marked by antagonism, bitterness, or, you know, it's almost a single tone film where, okay, by the end of the film, in good old Indian cinema tradition, the father changes his attitude. But when you look at Piku, nobody changes their attitude. The girl doesn't change her attitude towards her father. Neither does he change his attitude towards her at all. Okay, you remain at a certain level right through the film. And yet, you don't mind it at all as an audience. Now, that's the thing to understand about this film. That is the beauty of the script in the film and the way it's written and the way it's developed and the way the story is told. That it can tell you a story of human beings in a certain situation without worrying unduly about binary yes no's, that the girl should get out of the house and reject her father, or the father should throw her out and just live on his own. It's not that kind of binaries. It's more it's a film which in some sense captures some of the complexities with which we deal with in our day-to-day lives as human beings, regardless of our age. We all deal with these issues in certain senses of the word. And Piku does capture that very, very well. In that sense, it's a modern film. It captures a working girl in a certain position. You know, it's a world full of office cabs and that kind of stories. And even at the end of the film, I mean, if you were to ask and say, does she really married Irfan or has she not? I don't know, man. And honestly, I couldn't give a damn by the end of the film. I mean, the film was a father-daughter relationship. And after the father's death, what happens to the daughter is not really something worrying me by the end of the film. It's quite okay. Whatever happens to her, I believe she'll be all right. She'll take the best decision. Maybe she'll muddle along, but you know, it doesn't matter to me in the story anymore. Okay, that's where Piku is coming from. It is also very interesting for the other thing. It does depict the father as an old man who does have a deep desire to still live out his life in his own way. But when Amitabh Bachchan takes the cycle ride at the end of the film, if you remember, around Calcutta, he's not doing anything revolutionary. He's simply a 70-year-old guy riding a cycle around city streets, which he has probably seen as a child. But what is happening? To him, it's not simply a returning to roots. It's a certain sort of liberation which an aging person experiences, that he or she is still capable of chasing his dreams in his own way. That's something very beautiful and unique about the film, which made it enjoyable. Now I realize that I haven't been talking too much of women's rights and stuff as Ravi was wanting me to. So I hope that is okay with it. I'll end with discussing a bit about Chandigarh Ka Aashiqui, which in a sense is a film which derives from the same theme, that it deals with a subject which, while it has been there right through in our societies, okay, the tradition of the Hijra is very much a part and parcel of Indian society, no matter where you are. Now, to take it to another level of this level of a middle class transgender person and a transgender person as the female in a relationship and the male person who is clearly established as being very, very conventional, in some sense of the word, accepting that whole thing. That is the sign of the change which is coming about, at least in our urban societies. And you guys are going to be leading that change as it happens more and more. I think that was Ravi's basic idea, to show how even mainstream cinema can lead you on into thinking in newer ways. Because you could have made Chandigarh Ka Aashiqui or Vicky Donor in ways which are a little more abstract, maybe a little more realistic, but you might not have attracted that large an audience when you did that. Now, these people consciously said, no, I'm going to deal with it in a manner which is very traditional, make it into a conventional film with its quota of songs and dances and romances and whatever, so that it attracts a larger audience. And in a sense, what I'm trying to really say, the whole message of acceptance goes across to a wider spectrum of society. To me, that is what marks the real achievement of these films, that they do carry modern messages to a larger audience than just an experimental film. And as I clarified with a few names that I mentioned, all this harks back to Amar Jyoti and Duniya Na Mane and Bandhani, and this is something which we have been trying to do in Indian cinema, but it's terribly tough as always. And the fact that these films exist and have done well is a thing to celebrate and enjoy and live with. Okay, now let's open the floor to questions.
Yeah. Question, Satyam,
Yes, ma'am.
ask them. Yeah.
Yeah, so if any of you have any questions, like the floor is open, you can turn on your cameras and unmute yourself
No,
or write it down in the chat.
You can start with yourself. You can ask the first question. You don't have to be shy about it, right?
Yes, sir. But let's see if any of them has any questions. Then I'll ask in the end.
There's somebody who's raised their hand.
Misha has raised
Misha.
her.
Good afternoon, sir. It was a really nice experience listening to your perceptions and your takes on classical cinema and the current cinema as well. So one of the questions that has always intrigued me, and it's also kind of in a moral ethical manner, is that many a times people tell you that cinema is just a way for you to entertain yourself, and it's fiction. You're not supposed to take fiction seriously. But then there is also a very big category of people who have written theses, who've done their research on the basis of cinema, and they often discuss the takeaways that they have from the cinematic point of view. So now this debate between fiction and takeaway, how is one supposed to understand that this one particular piece of cinema is only meant for entertainment purpose, and then there is another piece of cinema which is where you're supposed to have takeaways and you're supposed to learn something out of it?
No, it's not a either or. It's not either or. They both go together. Always. They always have and they always will. Any story is also a depiction, not just of the particular characters that are depicted, but also of a society to which the characters belong. So it's not an either or, no matter what you do. Even if you watch the worst trash can film from the 1930s, which has no goddamn storyline, it will still convey something to you about that period, which you would not understand otherwise. Okay. So that's true of all stories from all times. And it's true of cinema today. So there's no either or, both these things go together. You listen to stories, you enjoy films because of the same reason that they hold your interest. If they didn't do that, they weren't good stories to begin with. And if they've held their interest, they are going to influence you whether you like it or not. Just as much as the heroine's hairstyle or the color of a dress or the hero's caps and all manner of things. I remember as a boy watching Devanand Jewel Thief, and the whole country was buying caps like Devanand at that time. So that's part and parcel of cinema and cinematic storytelling. And now at the same time, did it convey anything beyond just the story or did it not? That's always the question which is there. It's the filmmaker's choice what they do with the story. Every story is going to convey something to you, whether you like it or not. Whether it's good or bad or indifferent or conveying something proper to you is, strictly speaking, the filmmaker's problem and nobody else's. They decide what to do with the story and then take it forward. I don't see any contradiction in the two things. The two things go together, always have and always will. I mean, when you look at the Ramayana, why is it that you say Ram is a great guy? Because of all the incidents that happen in the story in which he handles himself in a particular way. Therefore, you say Ram is a great guy. He's a godhead. That because of the way he handles himself, that is the influence of the story. The story doesn't say Ram is a great guy. It is you who at the end of the story say Ram is a great guy because he does this, he does this, he does this in these situations. So that's something which we always do as human beings, whichever be the story. So there's no contradiction between being a story and being interesting and conveying something to you. You will always be conveying ideas to an audience. Whether they are good or bad is the filmmaker's problem and your problem and nobody else's problem. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. But the movies that they make these days, I've heard my parents and many of my friends say that the movies that they make today, leaving a few exceptionally good ones, you're supposed to put your brain outside of your body and then probably watch that piece of cinema because your brain just cannot process that.
That's a
So
rather
those things are
cynical way of,
intriguing.
that's a rather cynical way of dealing with things.
Right.
I wish you don't imbibe that attitude too much.
No, I don't.
Yes,
Because I believe a lot of work goes into the making, so it's
no,
important to have a brain.
that aside. I mean, just because work goes into making a soap doesn't mean you have to like the damn soap. You can so don't get into that. Okay, but what you need to understand is, in any era, yes, you will hear grandparents and parents tell you story that हमारे जमाने में बहुत अच्छी फिल्म बनती थी, अभी तो सब खराब हो गया. But that's a sure sign of people aging, nothing else. Okay, there were as many crappy films in 1960s and 1930s as there are today. The proportion was always the same, and it will remain the same in the next 50 years also. It doesn't change. In average year, there are about 10, 15 films which are interesting to watch. The rest are mostly crap. There are a few with good songs, bad stories. There are a few with good stories with bad songs, so you don't watch them. There are a few with big stars you watch, but they're still bad. So all that permutation combinations keep going on every year. So don't worry too much about it. There have always been about 15 to 20 good films in mainstream cinema. There'll always be so. That ratio doesn't change. Okay. It just happens that because there is a lot of competition between cinema and broadcast television and satellite television and OTT platforms and all the movies floating around on torrent platforms, which you download on your pen drives or hard drives and watch. Because of the amount of media available, two things have happened. One, your memory of films has become much shorter. Two, you do consume a lot more media than what you did when each time you wanted to see a movie, you had to go out to a cinema hall and buy a ticket and then see it. Today, it's a little easier than that in certain senses of the word. You have an OTT subscription and the damn film is there whether you watch it or not. Or you don't have to wait for broadcast television for a film to start at a particular time. It starts exactly when you want it to, right? Those are the conveniences which have come into life today. So enjoy it. The proportion of good films to bad films will always remain the same. And you just end up sounding like an old person if you start saying पुराने जमाने में अच्छा film होता था, now they're all bad. Don't get into that. Just forget it. Okay.
Sure, so I'll keep that in mind. I also had one more question that whenever they make movies out of classic pieces of literature, there is always this debate between people who prefer books over movies and people who prefer movies over books. So personally for you, what do you prefer, books over movies or movies over books? Because I believe both of these pieces do great justice in terms of artists and character.
You prefer both? What is the problem in preferring both?
But you always have to choose, no, sir. There's only one winner.
Why? Why do you want to choose winners? They're different art forms. You can't draw parallels between art forms. Between a poem and a song composed on it, there cannot be a comparison. They're two different art forms, written words on a piece of paper and written words set to a rhythm and a tune are very different. And it's the same when you talk of cinema. A novel or a poem is an entity that exists on its own. The film is an entity that exists on its own. Yes, you can compare and say these are the elements that changed in the film or didn't change in the film. By the end of the day, you go to watch a film or read a book to have an experience. And either that experience is good or not so good. If it's not so good, it doesn't matter how great a piece of literature it is based on. You say, to hell with it, I don't want to watch this damn film. Throw it off. So don't worry about it. These are very artificial comparisons, that in 1953 version of Devdas was always the best one. And the Shah Rukh Khan version is not so good. And don't get into that. That's an artificial theoretical debate of no consequence. Yes, you may take it for 5 minutes to compare the two films. The two people who have lived through the ages from 1953 down to the Shah Rukh Khan age, might be difficult to find. But when you're watching them today, I mean, it's the only historical reference. I mean, so what? Yeah, it's okay. When you read, in India, I don't think you have a clue on how many versions of the Ramayana exist in India. But A.K. Ramanujan, who was a great poet and ethno-linguist who collected versions of the Ramayana, Ramanujan collected 400 versions of the full Ramayana. Now, is one good and one bad? You can't say that. The core remains the same, but they're all different. They have to do with their cultures and the set of beliefs that power them. So you don't have to choose between them. That's the way it is. Do you really need to choose between Badshah and Beethoven? You don't. Or the Beatles and Bhimsen Joshi. Do you need to? You don't need to. You can listen to all of them. They exist in different spaces. You got to be a genuine fool to compare Badshah to Bhimsen Joshi, right? They exist in different spaces, and to me, there's no contradiction. I listen to both. Anyway, tell me what else.
If I could pose a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Whoever.
So, in a very older movie called Main Tulsi Tere Aangan, right? In that, Sanjukta and Tulsi, both of them have a conversation where Sanjukta is like, "You stole my husband." Okay. After 30 years in Bajirao Mastani, we again have Kashibai asking the same question to Mastani. If decades after we are still making the same way of movies, right? We are still pitting women against each other. We have a lot of budding, young storytellers right now. What in your opinion will you make a change in this? Because I understand pitting them against each other if it is constructive, but right now it's just for the sake of a man, and that just seems very backwards. How do you think, as new storytellers, should they may bring about a change, in that type of storytelling?
See, the only way new filmmakers can hope to survive and thrive is by making films which are true to their own sensibilities and their own nature. Okay? History, older films are all merely guides of events that happened in the past. But when you start making a film today, it's going to be about 2 years before the film reaches audiences at the earliest. So in a sense, you're an astrologer. You're predicting what audiences are going to like 2 years from now, right? Now you can choose to say, "Okay, haan, ye Karan Johar ki film mein ye hua tha, so I should also put in that same thing in my film." Or you can choose to be true to your own sensibility, which will be different for each one of you. I believe eventually you will make better films if you are true to your own sensibilities. Yes, it will take time to find the correct way and to find your voice, as we say in literature and filmmaking, but eventually that is the only thing that you can do, and that will take you further and further. Does that answer your question? I didn't directly try to answer
No, it does. It does.
particular question. I was getting into the basics. Okay, there's somebody who's raised his hand.
Siman.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I would like to know, whenever a movie faces backlash, which in recently last decade we have seen a lot in the news. So how does it impact the other components involved in the process of filmmaking? Because for actors, the impact is tangible. They will face backlash on social media, or they may lose some brand deals. But how does it impact the cameraman and the other people involved and like that?
Realistically speaking, when you're working in the industry, the commercial success or failure of a film, which presumably is what you're talking about, is something which the industry judges only 10% of you from that. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is when you make a film, there is a certain process you undergo. There is a certain set of people that you interact with, and they realize whether you business or not. Now, that is realistically speaking what moves you from one project to the next. In the industry, the commercial success is only a 10% component. Beyond that, it's just your knowledge of your craft of storytelling that moves you forward. About backlash and frontlash, don't worry too much about it because it will always happen. There will always be people who like your work. There will always be people who like your work. I don't think you need to worry about it too much. Uh, it's happened to the best of films. It's not happened to the worst of films. So it's something which you can't predict in advance that this is going to be the reaction. Okay? So it's something which keeps changing from moment to moment depending on thousands of factors. There's no accurate way of predicting what will be a backlash or what will not be a backlash. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I will just go and make the film. Yes, the climate of times do change. Yes, there are things you can do at certain times. Yes, there are things you can't do at certain times. But that's okay. That's part and parcel of life. That's the way it always was. When you talk of an artist in, say, the 1500s or the 1000 or 800 AD, he or she was having the same issues depicting when the king would cut off your head if you did something which he didn't like. Now it's the same kind of thing which may be happening to you today. That's a risk you always run when you deal with mainstream media. That's okay. Nothing to worry about.
Satyam, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah. Satyam, one student posted in my chat box this question, which I have posted out for everyone. Please read it out to sir and
Yeah, I'll read it out. Yes.
The one TYBA student has asked this question. Yeah.
Okay, Amit sir, the question goes, all the time in cinema, we see only female or girl is kidnapped or raped or something wrong happened with female. So, sir, why there is no any situation or any movie where we see a male is kidnapped and female is going and rescuing the male? Like there should be a fighting scene. So, why are cinema making this kind of film where female are stronger than the main lead hero?
I think we've been watching the wrong kind of films. That's the easiest answer I can give you. There have been a few films I remember. It's very well known Swedish film which you must still find on internet. It's called Men Can't Be Raped, which is exactly about this thing. But by and large, yes, there is a point to be made that there are no films about women being exploited. But I think you will find an equal amount of male exploitation films. But the interesting thing that happens is that when you depict male exploitation, you start talking of other issues, you start talking of the social aspects to it or the politics to it, rather than the sexuality. That really doesn't matter unless you're dealing with a gay person coming out kind of things, which is almost a glamour by now. But that's something which does happen. But I think if you don't like certain kind of things, the best thing is to do make a film which represents that kind of thing. Nobody is stopping. So please go ahead and express yourself. It's too difficult to generalize why do people make certain kinds of films and not certain other kinds of films. It's very, very difficult to generalize on that. I would tend to avoid that kind of generalizations because there are firstly far too many diverse kinds of films made at any given time. And be very difficult to, look at a ghost story or a villain story, compare it to Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum or comedy of, Kapil Sharma style stuff which keeps coming out. And it'd be very difficult to put all of them and put them in the same basket. They're different kinds of films. People make them in different ways, and hence the films turn out differently. Yes, Kiran ma'am, you were asking something. Your hand is raised.
Kiran ma'am.
Yes, I actually had a question. Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Am I audible? I just wanted to check if I'm audible. Can someone reply back? I am actually reading a book, and this question is stemming from the book that I'm reading. And I'll tell you why I'm trying to draw a comparison here. And the book that I'm reading is Illusions of Palace. And this is the story from Draupadi's point of view, the entire Mahabharata from Draupadi's point of view. And here's a question that I have, like when we talk about Ramayana and we talk about Mahabharata or any movie also for that matter, we only see it from the normal perspective or from the majority perspective. Like I would say that, I mean, are we saying that the Indian audiences still need to be more prepared and more forward to see something coming from a different perspective? Like when we talk about Mahabharata, from Draupadi's perspective, it's completely a different perspective that we are talking about. So are we saying that we still need to, as the audiences, I still need to, be more forward? Or are we saying that, the movies have come in and they haven't been able to go well, and therefore we don't make those kind of movies? Would you want to throw some light on that, sir?
I don't think it's a fair assessment of a situation, because it's eventually a film is a story about a certain set of characters told from a certain perspective. Yes, there have been the rare Rashomon, which does depict multiple perspectives on the same set of events. Rashomon is the nearest you will get in cinema to cubism, where three perspectives on the same thing existed. But if you're talking of comparing a film to the way characters are depicted in the Mahabharata, you need to be fairly clear that eventually the Mahabharata is a 3,000-page over 150,000 shloka, the world's longest poem.
Right, sir.
So the Mahabharata does have space to accommodate and depict multiple points of view within its structure. Now, to expect a multiplicity of points of view in an 80 or 90-minute film is, let us say, a reasonably difficult job. It is possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a difficult job. Rashomon does do it. I mean, do have a look at it. Akira Kurosawa, Rashomon, 1953, especially on the phone. There are other films which do the same thing, which depict the same events from multiple points of view. That's possible in cinema as much as it is possible with cubism in cinema, in painting. But it's not something every film or every storyteller sets out to do. Most of the time, the storyteller sets out to narrate a story from a certain point of view. Okay, when you talk of, say, Piku, now whose point of view is the story being told from? Is it from the Amitabh Bachchan character? Is it from the daughter? Yeah. But it does, I felt it does a reasonable, in any film, in any well-told film, there will be a balance between multiple perspectives. But yes, you could justifiably make a story of Piku from just the point of view of the servant who used to work with Amitabh Bachchan, and it'd be a perfectly legitimate film. And you could legitimately say that that is not there in the film. And the point to ask is the film lacking in any sense of the word, or is your experience of the film missing anything just because this or that is not there? If the experience is complete with what you have seen and heard, then it's pretty good. It does its job. You can always add to it. But so long as the experience was there and it held your attention for the 2 hours that the story was being told in front of you, it's pretty good. It's a job done. I wouldn't worry about it beyond that, honestly. Yeah, I see 2 hands raised.
Rayat.
Hello, sir. First of all, it's been an immense honor to listen from you. I'm audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Sir, and like, I can't tell you how blissful we are that we can talk to you directly through this Zoom call. Actually, sir, I have a small question. Like, we all are upcoming filmmakers and cinematographers. So now, I always get this question in my mind. When I see films, I wanted to be a director who makes films like Anurag Kashyap. But where I see the collections of the movies which are more commercial and like, which is not like quite my genre, and I won't prefer watching it and making it, but they are making more profit. So when in future we are making movies, so what criteria should we keep in our mind?
Make whatever is true to your sensibility, whatever feels right for you. I mean, maybe what is right for Anurag may not be right for you. So you're still exploring that, explore what stories you want to tell, and then take it forward from there. There will always be this pressure that, see, as I said, filmmaking is very near to astrology. You're predicting the future. You're predicting what audiences are going to like 2 years from now, right? You don't know what is the social situation going to be like. You don't know what the political situation is going to like, but you're still saying, this is the story they are going to like in 2 years' time, right? So obviously there are no formulas to it. Nobody knows what the hell is happening 2 years from now. So just be true to your own sensibility and tell the story in the best way that you can. It may not be an Anurag Kashyap film. It may not be a Karan Johar film. It will be a Rayat's film. So that's quite okay. It will take a few films before you find your own feet and your own way of telling stories, but please stick to it. That is what is going to pay you benefits in the long term. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, Devanshi wanted to ask something.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to ask, am I audible first of all?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay. So I wanted to ask that in every female-oriented movies, we often see the feminist theory being discussed. So do you think a female protagonist movie would exist without discussing feminism in this new age of cinema?
Yeah,
then if yes, then how long do you think it will take people to accept these new age female protagonist movies in mainstream Indian cinema? Because
we haven't seen Charlie's Angels, we haven't seen Batwoman, we haven't seen Wonder Woman, all these films. What is so revolutionary about Wonder Woman? Nothing, man. It's just
no. I'm talking about Indian audience.
Indian audience sees the same damn film. Yeah, don't think we don't watch these films. They all watch them. They're all dubbed into Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, everything. So we are all watching the same films. Yeah, well, what is the difference?
No, for example, we have movies like Is Love Enough, Sir, by Tilotama Shome, and Once Again by.
Hey, don't worry too much about. These are films on the borderline here. How many guys watched it? How many girls watched it for that matter? Yeah. See, there are films which are different, which are on the borderlines of mainstream cinema the world over. Yeah. They exist. They have always existed. They will always exist. Okay, but do we worry about them too much? When we do research thesis, then we worry about them. Otherwise, an average audience going to a cinema hall, you're done. So let's not worry unduly about it. Yes, they exist. Full stop. Move on beyond that. Nothing more, nothing less. I wouldn't worry too much more about it. Okay. Having said that, you do have a point, but remember that there are, as I said, if you look at Charlie Beans or you're looking at Wonder Woman, there's nothing feminist about them. They do have female protagonists. There's nothing feminist about them. Is there something feminist about Wonder Woman? Did anybody seriously think that? I don't think so. But at the same time, there is a woman as a central protagonist. So what does that mean? Nothing at all. It just means it's another story being told. You like it, you pay the price of the ticket or the streaming platforms fees and watch it. Don't like it, too bad. There's very rare to have one film which will agree to all your ideologies and still be an interesting story and still have your favorite stars and still have some good songs in them. It's a rare film. It's not going to happen. So why worry? We listen to songs from one film, we watch some film because they have our favorite stars in there. We watch others because we are very ideologically inclined to watch them. But if they don't come together in one film, so be it. Let's move on with life. That's the way I look at it. I honestly don't get stuck with any one film or any one period. I refuse to be counted as a grand old granddad, that, in my days the films are all great and in your days they're all nonsense. Forget it. That's not the way the world works. It's silly to think that it will. It never did and never will. There are as many crappy films being made in the 1930s and 40s and the so-called golden ages anywhere in the world. So don't worry about it. You're living in a golden age. If you're not, make the damn age golden.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So make the films you want to see. That's what we tell all our students. Make the films you want to see. Any change you want to bring in the world, come on, do it. You are the change.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Devanshi.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions anybody wants to ask? Anything? Okay. We have Shivani. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. I wanted to ask what do you think is the future of the female leads in the Hindi cinema?
Sorry, you'll have to repeat it. I got caught up in my day job. Yeah, tell me.
So what do you think is the future of the female leads in the Hindi cinema?
I guess so long as the male leads exist, they will also exist. Unless everybody wants to make only gay films. That's the easy, quick one-line answer to it. I mean, there's no other way. Look, end of the day, women do constitute broadly about 50% of the human population, right? The proportion may vary by 2 or 5% depending on the country or region that you're in. But broadly speaking, about half the population of the world, half the population of our relationships in life, whether you are male or female, are going to be women, right? So if you're going to be telling stories, then women will feature in them, right? Now, if you have women featuring in your stories and you want to depict them on screen, unless you want to go back to the grand tradition of male playing females, you will have to cast some female people in them. The moment you do that, there will be room for female leads to come in and act in your film. That is the future. That is the present. That is the past.
Something which will change what it is presently and some characteristics that might change in the future.
Meaning what? How will they change? What is your fear? Let us put it that way.
For example, we discussed that some things were stigmatized before, like women wearing short clothes or something, and talking about things that society does not like, say, for example, periods or something. So in that sphere, what do you think will change in the future?
I honestly wish I could give you an answer, but I don't know. Okay. I don't want to be predicting the way cinema is going to unfold in the future, or indeed whether cinema will exist as we know it in the next 50 or 70 years. Okay. All I can say is that I think we are entering into an age where you will have more diversity in cinema. What I mean by that is there will be an increasing number of films made about aspects on which of human life about which we at the moment don't make films. I believe you will see a lot more of that as we go along, simply because the reach of these audiovisual media will be so much, and when you're wanting to cater to everybody, you will end up covering newer and newer areas. So that's something that will happen. Yet beyond that, I honestly wouldn't know. I wouldn't want to be a fortune teller predicting what is going to happen. Is Amitabh Bachchan going to be a star 20 years later or not? I don't know. I don't want to predict, honestly.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anyone else has any questions? Okay, sir, I had a question then. You wanted me to ask, right? So my question to you was like, as you said earlier, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, as you mentioned earlier, sir, that sometimes movies are purposely made at a commercial level or pitched at a commercial level with songs and dances, stuff like Vicky Donor. So, like my question to you is that there's this movie, एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा, in 2019 by Shelly Chopra. So, do you think sometimes like trying to pitch that movies at commercial level, like it gets convoluted and like loses its crux of the story? Like in 1996, there's a Deepa Mehta film, Fire, which also deals on the same subject, like women's sexuality, exploring sexuality. So, do you think like what are your views on this? Like, yes, like sometimes like I move like Fire has a like straightforward story, like two married women, like like after their marriage they find that.
I'm reasonably familiar with the film. No, about that. What do you want to say about this? Are you saying that if there were songs in the film, it gets spoiled or the impact would go less or something like that? That's what you're trying to say.
Like एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा, like had the same concept, like the woman was insecure about like telling like her parents about her sexuality, and but like it didn't do that well on the like box office. So like should we tell the story like
Hey, look, does anybody know the right formula that to make every film commercially successful or a box office success? If you did, well, I'm sure you'd be a billionaire by now. You could just share it with Karan Johar and make your billions after that, right?
Yeah.
Nothing more is required. Nobody knows that. That's both the beauty and the tragedy of the art, is that each film or each work of art that we create is a new one. It may broadly have patterns derived from earlier films, but eventually each film, each work of art is unique and has to be true to its own self. If your story does not accommodate songs, so be it. There have been films in Indian cinema since the 1940s which have not had songs. Nobody has minded it. A lot of them have done very well. Box office. Having said that, songs do constitute the identity of Indian cinema. Songs are the defining quality of Indian cinema. It is the presence of songs which came about with the coming of sound in Indian cinema, which makes people gave Indian cinema its identity, not just in Hindi, but in different cultures of India. Because India is not one culture. You know, we may make films in 14 languages officially. Otherwise, in about 30 languages that we are counted. Now, when each one of them has songs, why do they have to make the songs given to a longer tradition of theatrical performance and all the performing arts of India? That is the reason songs succeed. Long tradition in every culture of India, which which relates to songs. You're in Maharashtra right now. Very time-honored tradition of artists who keep telling stories which incorporate songs in Marathi theatre, which has been there for about 20 years. Even longer than that, there are, performance arts like Vikrati in Maharashtra, where you tell stories with pictures, with songs in them. Now, when you have a cinema, when you have films with songs, these are traditions we are tapping into, which are at least as old as the Bharatanatyam Shastra, which was written in the 2nd century, and which links cinema directly to all the theatrical and performance arts in India. That is why songs are a part and parcel of Indian cinema in all languages. Having said that, there is no rule which says you need to have songs. If you don't have songs, you can still have a pretty interesting story to tell. There's no problem with that. There have been people in India who have been making films like that, and you shouldn't shy away from it. So it depends on the sensibility which you bring to your story, and it depends on the story you are telling. I mean, there is a reason why thrillers and horror films are not very popular in India. Because they don't have songs. You can't put songs into a goddamn horror film. What do? Your zombies will sing songs. So that's where the problem comes. That is why we don't do those films. Why do we not do those films? Because eventually the films with songs have a bigger audience. When your producer is putting in money, he or she will tell you, so now you need to do a film which caters to the widest possible audience so that I can earn more money. That is why you have songs in the film. That is where it comes in from. If you can find a producer who says, okay, fine, Satyam, you can make a film without songs, I'm quite okay with it. We just sell it to Netflix and laugh all the way to the bank. Now, if you can do that, very nice, do it. Opportunities like that don't come every day in your filmmaking life, so please take it up. So do it. There's really no contradiction between the two. They exist in parallel universes, so to say. It's not one either or. Okay, don't make those either or question answers. Don't look for them. Except that there is diversity and there are diverse stories. If you're going to make a zombie film and with a horror theme, you aren't going to include songs in it because no damn horror disappears the moment the hero starts singing a song in the middle of horror film. Right? So it's your problem as a storyteller what kind of things you put into your story and what kind of things you don't put into your story. Both are equally acceptable to audiences. So then live with it. Accept the diversity, live with it, move on and make the film which are true to your sensibility.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Now, if any of you have any questions, or else we'll move ahead with the meeting. Okay, I guess you don't have any questions. So now I would request head of our department, Ms. Ravi ma'am, to extend the hearty note of thanks for our guest speaker.
All right. Thank you so very much, Satyam. And I'm truly humbled, to get this opportunity to extend a vote of thanks to someone like Amit sir. Earlier, I thought that I should pen down something, and read it out in the meeting. But then I realized that gratitude should come more from the heart rather than from the dry words on the pages. इतना ही सर कहूंगी कि your this 1.5 hour was way more way more productive than the research papers we read on a cinema, and what all books we have out there to read on cinema and on any topic, I guess. But sometimes I find the research papers very dry. मतलब समझ नहीं आता कि मतलब basically कहना क्या चाह रहा था वो. अब्बास कियारोस्तामी का हमने पीछे ही एक research paper share किया, and the same thing happened with that. But truly, मतलब this 1.5 hour, not only for Bid, I'm sure for everyone out there, they have been so much productive, and the कितनी सिंप्लिसिटी से आपने मतलब सारी चीजों को हमारे सामने रखा और बताया. I think I don't have words to express my gratitude to you, honestly. But still, thank you so very much for your informative and enlightening session. I will say not informative, but enlightening session it was. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for honoring me with your company.
We are honored, sir.
Thank you very much, Ravi ma'am. Now I would request our class teacher Kiran ma'am to give the ending remarks for today's session. And all the students are requested to fill the feedback form, which has been sent in the chat box. It is mandatory for you all to receive the e-certificates for today's session. So kindly fill that. Yes, Kiran ma'am, you can go ahead. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Okay, am I audible? This is the first thing that we always talk about now. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So I would like to thank Amit Tyagi, sir, profusely for enlightening us with pearls of wisdom shared by him. And I'm very sure, and I'm sure that they have also made mental notes of the conversation. And I would also like to thank Sir for his candid comments and attitude that he showed. And I think this is something which I would learn more from, from a personality like you, and taking that and ingraining that in my attitude, in my mind and my heart. This is something which I'm going to be taken. I'm hoping that the entire audience over here is also able to imbibe everything, every word that you stated, and the clarity that you had, and the elaborative answers that you simpler than this, simply simple. So thank you so much, sir, for being there. And I would also like to extend the thank you to the audience for being such a wonderful audience and such a cooperative audience. And I thank you for your interest and also passion shown in this particular event by registering yourself. And I'm sure that you would be waiting for more events like this. So thank you again to my speaker, and I'm thrilled with whatever I've learned from you today. And I'm sure the audience is for being so patient and such a lovely audience. Over to you, Satyam.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, Kiran ma'am. And I hope that all the students have filled the feedback form. And if you haven't, we'll send it in the group as well. So fill it from there. And thank you for joining us today. And I hope that you all inquisitive minds keep being creative and making cinema. And we wish to see you soon, very like in another event. Thank you once again, Amit sir, Ravi ma'am, Kiran ma'am, and everyone present here. Thank you very much for
Thank
making
you,
this
sir.
happen.
Thank you.
Please take care of yourselves and have a great day.
Thank you
you.
so very much, Akshay sir. Amit sir.
Thank you so much,
And we
sir.
can, yeah. Thank you, sir.